Hello and good evening and welcome to Drone Masterclass Live. I'm Andrew, I'm the lead instructor here at Drone Masterclass. We wanted to bring you a new live channel to bring you up to date with all the drone regulations, all the drone news, and to bring you some of the insights into what we do here at Crowded Space Drones, behind the scenes really. So we've created this channel to bring you that content and to help anyone who's starting to get their way into the drones, whether that's as a commercial user or a hobby user, or even if you just got the small drone for flying around your house, etc. We want to help you on your journey with those. So the channel's here to bring you a range of content that's from insights into our training courses, which for example is the A2CFC or the GVC, and that's then through to a wide range of specialist areas, whether you want to know more about how to keep people away from when you're flying, GDPR, all these different things, how to trade a spotter. We're going to help you with that over the next coming months. So tonight we have a very special guest with us. It's a friend of mine. He's all the way from another country, even though he doesn't sound like it. And that's Stephen Sutton from the FlyBy Guys. So good evening, Stephen.
Good evening, Andrew. Thank you for the invitation. And yeah, it's good to be in the first show.
Yeah, sorry, we're a little bit later due to technical issues, ranging from camera issues to my earpiece not working, which is why I'm wearing these stupid headsets. I don't look as cool as Stephen does tonight.
Well, obviously, I had a small issue myself. My mic wasn't plugged in. So.
Well, all ours, to be fair, all ours was plugged in, so that just makes you look stupid.
It does. It makes me look very stupid. It makes me look very stupid.
So, how are things in your drone company?
Well, very, very busy as always, like yourself.
You're always traveling around the world. You never seem to stop. People say I travel a lot, but you always travel a lot more than I do.
Yeah, we are. We've I mean, since the beginning of this year, it's been really hectic. I've not had a month at home. I've literally had travel every month. So we're obviously in the middle of drone light shows, and we're also in the middle of the inspections that we're doing as well. So we just done a drone light show last weekend in Amsterdam for Spotify. So we were doing that with Nova Sky Stories.
I saw that one. It looked really good.
Yeah, it was actually really, really good. Actually, I actually wasn't there. It was the first time I wasn't actually there. So
were you nervous?
It was Mike. I was well, actually, no, not really, because I knew Michael would do a good job. But it's the first time I've never actually been there when there's been one going on. That we've been looking after. So, yeah, we've got something very special coming up in the next couple of weeks, which I'll talk a bit more about later on in the next few weeks. We've got something huge, so we'll be traveling to the Middle East, and that will be us till the end of the year.
Nice. I mean, with the drone night shows especially, there's some that will deliberately pique people's imagination and be go very globally viral. So obviously the ones in the UK for the Queen's Jubilee and things like that obviously got a lot of attention. But that Spotify one, obviously Spotify's a global company, but that Spotify one especially seemed to be across all platforms. I mean, I saw lots of stuff on TikTok and also on LinkedIn with that. Whereas normally, especially LinkedIn, you wouldn't see that much content about it, but with that Spotify one, there was everywhere.
Yeah, and it was a very unique shows, because it was 4 shows over the space of 4 hours. So they launched a show at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock, and so the drones had to go up and then come back and then get charged up, ready to go for the next one as well. The weather wasn't looking too great, but it actually held out. And things were made a lot easier by the Dutch Aviation Authority as well, actually. So of course that's something that we're talking about later on. But they were absolutely fantastic. They were really helpful, because it's quite tough. But again, we'll discuss that later. So.
Well, the first thing I'd like to talk about tonight is this little guy, the DJI Avata.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we've had ours for a little while now. And I'm really getting to good grips with it in terms of flying at manual mode and sport mode and things like that, but also testing how good the camera is. So I thought we could talk a little bit about that tonight too.
Yeah, it's a nice, it's a nice little drone. I can talk about it because I've flown yours. I don't actually have one, but I flew yours around the office, and because
you have to admit our office does have a perfect racetrack format for that.
It does. I mean, flying it, obviously around there, and then obviously out through. You can keep visual line of sight of it anyway, no matter where you are in the office. So, but yeah, it's a nice place to be able to actually fly it, actually, and it gives you that perspective, because this is the kind of a new thing that you're able to do, is to fly these things indoors and get some really, really good content. But it is a really nice drone to fly, actually. It's the first time I'd used the the hand controller, not the usual kind of
motion controller,
the remote that you get. But that was the first time I was using it, and it was easier than I thought. I still would like to have this because I'm old school in that sense. I don't know how, if I were to get one of those, and then I don't know how much I would really feel comfortable with it. Because, but but I mean, how are you getting on with it? Because you have been, obviously flying it now non-stop, and you've been seeing the videos and stuff like that. So
well, before we get into my thoughts, let's take a look at what DJI say about it in their official video.
Cool.
The dream of flying lives deep within us. Experiencing it is now possible for all. Awaken the dream and discover your new passion. Introducing DJI Avata. The new generation DJI Goggles 2 instantly transport you to the sky. They're smaller, lighter, more comfortable, and diopter adjustable. Fully focused on immersive experience. Whether you're new to flying or already a seasoned pilot, the motion controller makes you feel one with your drone. Just plug and fly. Pull the trigger and bolt forward. Or turn a corner with the swivel of your wrist. Flying is as easy as point and go. DJI Avata brings high-quality imagery to every flight. The integrated camera system features an upgraded sensor. Totally immerse yourself and your audience by using the ultra-wide field of view. Capture cinematic footage in 4K resolution. Or freeze time with epic slow-motion shots in up to 120 frames per second. Smooth and stable video, even as you swoop and dive, is now a reality with Rocksteady. And with Horizon Steady, you can lock your footage level for a cinematic feel. The low weight and small size of DJI Avata makes it perfect for hitting the tightest gaps. The built-in propeller guard allows you to be more daring with your maneuvers. If Avata makes contact with an object, it bounces back and maintains its altitude, so you can keep on flying. At the tap of a button, you can instantly halt to a stop and hover in place. Then, set off again when you're ready. Should Avata fall on its back, activate turtle mode and watch it launch back into action. For additional safety, Avata features downward sensors and return to home, keeping your drone safe on every flight. Enjoy a crisp live feed with DJI's flagship O3 Plus video transmission and snappy ultra-low latency response times. With an outstanding 18 minutes of flight time and a transmission range of up to 10 kilometers, you can freely explore for longer and farther. Realize dreams, evoke imagination, and dare to fly with DJI Avata.
No, we seem to have lost Stephen. Oh, you're
Have
there.
you lost me? I'm there. I'm
There
here.
we go.
I'm here.
There we go.
I'm here.
Right, Stephen, what did you think of that video?
I mean,
It talks a big talk.
It does talk the big talk, and I think that all drone pilots should start with FPV. I think that they should start with FPV because it gives you that ability to fly without all these special features that allow you to do all the singing and dancing without having to worry about anything, and that's not good. That really isn't good, and I think that you need that. We have this thing in FlyBy Guys that we call muscle memory that you have to have.
Yeah.
And it's something that many pilots don't have. Many there's a lot of pilots who just don't have that muscle memory, and that's really tough. And I think that I never really use all these special features. I fly manual, as a lot of people who fly FPV do. And I think that when people fly FPV, as you really get that. The more that I understand how to fly and what really it takes to be a drone pilot, not just flying, but there's other things as well. FPV, yes, these guys are really, really good, but they are really good because they have that muscle memory. They have that special something that many people don't have.
I think for me, if you compare it to anything else, being a bit like sort of a general GPS enabled drone flight like it Inspire 2, Mavic, etc. That's like driving a car, whereas FPV is more like driving a motorcycle. You have people who can do both. You have some who can only do FPV and don't do that well on the mainstream drone side, and vice versa. It's got its own place. It doesn't need to replace either, because they're different shots, and they started off with very small drones with GoPros on them, for FPV, and now they're going through to flying like red cameras for cinema and big heavy rigs, even sometimes with 2 cameras, doing chase sequences that something that used to a helicopter would do and things like that. So I think there's different drones for different purposes in that sense. But the first
I think that when you're flying, but when you're flying with those bigger rigs on them, for example, you're flying with, cameras that are worth way more than the drone itself, but still they are very capable of doing it, which is very, very important, of course. But it's what we call muscle memory. You have to have that muscle memory, and FPV gives you that. And I think that this Avatar, I think it's a great little drone because you can make mistakes with it, as we have done when we were flying it, a few weeks ago. Kind of banging it into the wall and all of this and the flipper. It's fine. It's and that you kind of say, okay, I know I shouldn't do that again, and you don't have to rebuild the drone or anything, but it gives you that ability. It's a really good drone, and I think it's better than the last FPV that they had, which I think once you have one accident with it, that's it. It's just gone.
If you live in a country like the UK, you're not going to have that much time in good weather all the time to fly outside. So the last FPV wasn't exactly a drone I'd be confident flying around small spaces like our office. Whereas this, obviously, because it's essentially ducted in that sense, with the cage around it. So it's a lot safer to do that. And therefore, you can probably get a lot more flight experience, because when it's raining outside, we can still fly, as you sort of saw when you were over. I think it's a good crossover because I've never flown FPV before. We have other people who do that for us for our shoots. And I've started flying off of the sport mode and sort of about normal, then sport. The normal mode outdoors didn't really do it because it's so speed reduced in any wind and things. So really have to go to sport to push it. And now moving into the manual side, I'm starting to learn that. And the simulator's very good in that. I'm doing a lot of hours at the moment in the simulator in the goggles, connected my phone. But it's really a skill. It really pushes you differently than the normal flying, because to an extent things are inverted in controls, and you're having to do different stick maneuvers to get it to do what you want it to do. And obviously you're never going to barrel roll an Inspire 2 or M300 or anything like that. So it's a different sensation. Some people seem to some people seem to get on with the goggles of the view. I've flown, manned aircraft before, so I sort of get used to the view from it. Whereas I imagine people who are always on the ground may struggle more to get used to the view being on board.
Yep. Yeah. It is a different view. It is something that takes a bit of getting used to in that sense. But again, I think that's all part of the learning. But as you were saying there, that there's things that you would do there that you wouldn't do with an Inspire 2. But if you were in that ability that you were very close to having that in Inspire 2, you would know how to react. You would know how to do that, maneuver safely, and in order to get out of trouble. And this gets back to what I was saying about the muscle memory. You need to have that. And there's many people who just they don't fly enough. They don't, they will fly the Mini 3, they will fly the Air 2S, or they'll fly whatever it is, but they're just so used to to all these special features that allow them to do everything that. And that is not the way to go. In fact, I just gave a talk a couple of weeks ago to a university, and that was the first thing that they asked: what is it that you're looking for in pilots? And I said, stop using all these smart controls. Stop using them. I said, just get out there and fly. Fly many hours. And they came back and they were like, yeah, that is the best thing. And we realise that now. So.
Well, that's the thing I've been pushing with especially with the manual flying, is I don't want to wreck the drone. Obviously, the drone's very robust, and you can push it and bump it into things, or a lot of people have crashed it with significant damage, and then just it's flown again very easily. But I don't want to push it too hard, so I'm getting there's a certain group of trees here in our offices. So we've got a massive car park out the back, which you'll see some footage of later, and we're pushing closer and closer to those trees, and the gaps between the trees sort of judge distances, because half the problem is just judging the distance. Once you know how close you're seeing, it's easy to go around things. I mean, you saw at our office, we got a bell on the wall, and the challenge is to get as close to the bell without touching it, as part of how to learn how close to be away from things.
Yeah.
But
it's true. It's good.
So the first thing I will say is the goggles. If you haven't seen the original goggles, these are a lot smaller and they're a lot lighter. I find them very good. Some people complain about the headband, but I think they're really good. The only complaint I have is you can't at the moment get stock of the battery for them, the one with the indent for clipping in. You can get the previous version, but not the battery. So we've got the original FPV drone, so we can just use those. But it's there's not a full stock of those available, really. It's a lot better with the ocular changing in it. So you probably can't see, but in here you got the dials, and in that you can then change. So people who are wearing glasses, some of our staff who have very thick glasses, they're able to change that. I'm not going to name him because he's in the chat, so he's going to get annoyed if I name him. But he,
I know who you mean. I know who you mean.
So we're not going to. He can change it and make it good for him. So the goggles, from my perspective, are really, really much better improvement. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that this is a far superior product now that they have compared to the last DJI FPV that came out. So this is a really nice drone to fly. It's not easy. It is not an easy drone to fly, and I think that's a good thing, because but it's good that it's robust, as you were saying. But yeah, just get out and fly. Just fly it and just have fun, and just don't stop. Or stop when it rains and then get back out there again. That's just all you can do.
All you have to do, if it rains outside, go inside, fly it there. The thing is, it should give you an element of confidence, because the cage is good. True. It's not like adding prop guards to a Mavic 3 or whatever, or Mavic 2. It's a really...
I don't believe in that. I really don't believe in that. I really don't like seeing any of these. Even the sub 250s. I think it was the Mini 2 that had these prop guards and stuff. I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, if you yourself are not confident in You know, I do understand.
We tried the Mini 2 pop cards before, and they actually made it more unbalanced and more harder to control.
Yeah,
but with this, it's a good bump cage for practicing and learning. It's a very sturdy construction, and you know, we paid for ours. It's not like a DJI official review thing. Yeah. We're not trying to sell you, other give it an honest opinion. It's very sturdy. We've had some issues like in the controller.
It's solid.
Yeah.
It's solid.
We've had some issues like in the controller to it, but firmware updates did that and solved that, and that seems to be a somewhat common issue. The only annoying things we really have with this drone is, first of all, unlocking no-fly zones. So we were doing a shoot in Belfast, which a video will come out soon. It's a fly through of a church, and it's not really anywhere near the airport, but it's within the flight restriction zone for Belfast City Airport. So we had to get permission, which we did. It was an indoor shoot for the most part, so it was quite easy to get that permission. But it was really finicky getting it unlocked, and we tried to try several times. I had to re-establish the firmware in it through the laptop, through the DJI Assistant app, and then it eventually did it, but it didn't keep it either. So we had a problem whereby we unlocked it, then battery changed, and it still wanted unlocked again. Normally that'll sort of enable in the drone, stay on the drone. So that was a bit annoying. But the second issue is really the camera at night. So bit of a sort of, don't tell anyone we told you this, but we've got a big shoot coming up at a major London landmark. We have to do an FPV shoot for an announcement. It's at night. London has lots of light, but not, it's not really well brightly lit. So we needed to do test shots of a similar structure to test the night vision, or not night vision, but the night quality of the camera. And it's nowhere near as good, we found, as, for example, a GoPro 11 Black, something like that. So for that shoot, we're having to switch back to our normal FPV with a GoPro 11 Black on it. Because it's not as good for... it's an outdoor to indoor shoot, so ideally we would want something ducted and all that sort of stuff, so it'd be ideal for that in the type of drone. But the camera at night is just not good enough to cut the mustard, so we're having to go to a traditional FPV rig for that. I am going to fly this as well and just do some test footage, just so we can do a side-by-side comparison once we're allowed to release the footage. But the night vision properties are really, I'm not very impressed. But the day vision, and especially the going in and out of buildings in bright light and coming into lower light, that's fantastic. We did that church video, it wasn't very well lit inside, and it's smoothing out the transitions really well. So I'm really impressed with that.
I seen that video. You did send that video to me. So I did see that, and it was good. And also at the office as well, because you've done it coming in, out and in and outside, and just on those basic settings that you had. I don't know if you had them on manual settings for the camera or but it looked, I mean, there was no, let's say, kind of drastic change. It was really smooth.
That was the concern for the church, because we were going from bright outside into a dark church entrance, so we did use,
and it was a narrow door, wasn't it? It was a very
narrow door,
and it was a very narrow door. Yeah.
And it worked flawlessly. We're really happy. We did two versions on the day. We did a manual and auto, but the auto one worked really well with moving it inside. So from a fly-through perspective, this is a 100% brilliant drone. Just, you have to be aware of the limitations of the camera, and unless you're willing to fly it in manual mode and learn that, I think you're not going to maybe push the boat out enough for some clients. Some clients of ours, want barrel rolls over a structure or things like that. It's going to be harder to achieve those with this but having said that as well, the horizon steady is something we're using a lot in our recording with this drone. We've also tried the all stabilization off, and then that works with a gyro program that DJI sort of linked into to you can stabilize it yourself, but that was quite cumbersome, and so some of the footage came out a bit poor compared to horizon steady. So the horizon steady aspect of the DJI system is fantastic. It's really good. and it gives you a nicer field of view compared to them mix it into traditional filming like an FX9, something like that, because it just brings a bit more less wide field of view.
Yeah. It's yeah. I'm you know, I might get one next year. You know, when I'm when I'm a bit more settled and stuff. You know, and
when you've made your next million from drone shows.
My next million from drone shows. Yeah. That's what my family keep thinking that as well. I don't know why. You know, if I had millions, I would probably have a few.
That's why he's not really doing drone shows in all these exotic locations. He's just visiting the bank.
I'm visiting, yeah. I wish that was the case, but unfortunately, my work is a bit more cooler than that. So, you know. Yeah.
But I think in summary, it's a really good drone. If you want to get into FPV, it's probably a good way, but you need to understand it's not giving you that much experience of FPV. It might give you a taster, but unless you're going into manual mode with this and get pushing the boundaries, it's not really proper, as they call acro FPV. You know, you really want to push and go into a custom built rig for that can do everything you want to do. This is very much it's like when you go bowling and put the sides up, the bumpers on. It's like that for acro. And then once you take them down, it's not even, a million times harder. It's more.
I've never flown, many FPVs. In fact, I think I've only flown your FPV. Really, is the only FPV that I've actually flown. So I can't compare it. But I would imagine that these custom built ones that they have, that they're very light. And it gives them the ability to do all those wonderful things that they do with it. If I were 10 years younger, maybe I could do that. I don't know. I mean, there's guys older than me that have started and are doing really well with it, So maybe if I get a little bit more time in my hands, it would be something that I could do.
Well, I think you make a fair point, because most of the people that are the really, really good FPV pilots have lots of time to go and practice and do things. A bit like you, I travel quite a bit, and my time is very limited. So my ability to practice that is really evenings or weekends to an extent. And finding a spotter can sometimes be, you have to get someone available for that and things, because everyone knows I don't have any friends, and so it's so it's really hard to practice that and get the time and also get the space, because if you want to be really challenging with yourself and practice with FPV and acro, you need something interesting to fly around. And obviously you have to be legal when you're doing that, so you have to have access to land or be certain distances away from people and things like that. So once you get a good site, then that's really much easier.
I mean, that's not a problem here in Finland, because I mean, the country is so big and there's not many people, so and there's lots of trees, there's lots of land, it's very flat. So this is a great place to fly in a sense, So
so is this the official Tourism Finland, come to Finland to learn FPV campaign?
Yeah, and it's also a great place to fly drones as well, because the regulators are very, very, very supportive. The only issue you have, I'll talk about something which is very, very drone related in Finland here at the moment, which is actually related to what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. There has been, and this is slightly off topic, but it's slightly connected in a way. There has been drone sightings nearby, let's say, critical infrastructure in Norway and Finland, and they're apparently sightings of these drones they've been spying on critical infrastructure. There was a Russian guy arrested in Norway who happens to be the son of a friend of Vladimir Putin. The guy was apparently spying, or so it goes, and we're having the same thing here as well. And the authorities here are thinking about shutting down the drone airspace in all of Finland. So it's like a risk that it could be happening. And I'm trying to call ministers today, and I'm trying to call the police to try to find out what is going on, because we need to know. But I know that they're shutting down certain parts of airspaces, but I know that there was meetings today that they were talking about maybe shutting down the entire Finnish airspace for drones, and I'm like going, you can't do that. You cannot do that, So, but yeah, so in a way, yes, it's a good place to come and fly, but this could be the worst place to come and fly because we could have nowhere to fly. But let's see.
Well, that's a really good segue into talking about the EASA regulations. But just in case anyone's wondering, I've seen someone ask in the chat where you can legally fly the Avata and things. In terms of a qualification for the Avata, under the UK regulations at the moment, you couldn't fly it under the A2 CFC. So that's a qualification we offer here at Drone Masterclass. It's only $39.99, and you can do it completely online, and then you can do your test remotely, or you can do it in person here at our offices, and then that will allow you to fly in the open category, the subcategory A3. At the moment, until the new regulations come in, obviously the Avata is not C-rated. The only C-rated drone from DJI at the moment is the Mavic 3 in Europe, and the UK is still to announce what they're going to do in terms of the regulations for labelling drones and C marking of drones. But yeah, moving on to EASA then. So Stephen, you've got the issues in Finland with them. You're saying they're threatening to remove drone airspace in that sense. But I've been doing a lot of work recently with the EASA drone team, and that's really been eye-opening in terms of the drone regulations across Europe. They are really forward-thinking, and they brought me on as a consultant on drone regulations, and also helping commercial and specific category and open category drone users get into more areas across Europe and be able to travel and things like that. And they've brought out some new drone content in relation to understanding the regulations. Even one of them is an FPV video in that sense. So what I'd like to hear from Stephen is, what is your experience so far of working across Europe? Because you do a lot of that, don't you?
We do, and it's really challenging. It's really challenging. Obviously EASA, when it started out, or let's say the aim of it is that we are all together, is that all the European member states are all together, so therefore we can fly under our our licenses in these countries. However, when it comes to cross-border, that is a different story. And whether you're a Finnish company, whether you're a Dutch company, whether you're a French company, and you want to fly in Germany or Portugal or Spain, that actually creates problems, because all of the member states, they are not aligned when it comes to regulation and permissions. So if you're a company, you want to fly, or like we want to fly in Germany, it's not a case of let's apply in Germany. You have to know where you're flying in Germany, and then you've got all these little states in Germany which you have to be able to contact that state, and then you have to apply there, and they might have different rules and different ways of doing things.
Would that be more of a local regulation or bylaw rather than an aviation law aspect?
Yeah. Yes. So, but then, of course, if I, let's say if someone from, let's say, France was wanting to fly in Finland, therefore they would just go to one body. It's just one entity they go to, and there's no separation. There is no, let's say, regional or anything. So they just go to the one place. So you have got member states that have got good ways of working, that are working, if you want to say the new way or whatever, but that's how they've been working. But then you have got the other member states where they're still on the old ways. So there has to be a way that we have to come in and work together, which I know that they are trying to do, and some states are, of course, are very good. Like we've been working with the Netherlands, and they were fantastic. They were really easy to work with, very supportive. I would happily work with them again, actually. And let's say Germany is difficult. I still get mail every day. I still get snail mail, with the stamp on it saying that you're allowed to fly and stuff like that. It's like, what? This is 1975, Whereas, from the other member states, I just might get an email with an attachment, and it will have a stamp on it, and then that's okay. So we are not, let's say, aligned, and it's difficult. It's very challenging, and it should be made easier, because if we are, under the EASA rules, then going to fly in France or Spain or Germany should be a seamless, let's say, process in order to get those permissions, or so it is challenging. How about you?
Well, I think from my experience of working with the core EASA drone team, they are, aviation regulator to another aviation regulator, with the national airspace, authorities, or aviation authorities, should say. They clearly, some relationships are better than others. Some, they openly told me that some aviation regulators aren't as proactive in relation to drones as others. So the further east you go, to an extent, the less regulations you encounter, the Baltic states and things like that. And that's not from a, lack of wanting to deal with drones or anything like that. Sometimes that's just from a workload issue, or just not seen as a threat there, or various different reasons. And EASA are, quite frankly, desperately trying to bring this all together, because the whole spirit of these new regulations is to make it easier, to make it more uniform and streamlined. And on the training side, that's sort of happening. If you look at Ireland, for example, the A2 CFC came out quite quickly, but then the specific category qualification has not. It's very stunted in that sense, and that's a picture across Europe. They too, the open category stuff has seemed to be more popular in terms of a rollout from NAAs, but it's still confusing. It's still, as you say, bylaws. Obviously in the UK it's quite easy, because the CA control airspace outside. If it's indoors, they don't. They accept that. If there's a local authority or someone trying to create a bylaw locally, the CA are very good in the UK saying, no, we regulate aviation. It's our job. So apart from stopping you taking off their land, there's very few local bylaws in that sense. So I think the UK has a very good. I think aspects of Europe, especially, Ireland's quite good in terms of the whole airspace management and things like that. I think they're very simplistic. It's very easy to understand. But then you've got countries, as you say, France. You hear lots of things about Spain, about, having to fly in certain areas, not in towns, things like that. But then you've got your experience in Holland, Germany, etc. And I think, trying to bring that all together. Have you seen the EASA content on their website?
Yes.
So it's really good in terms of, if you want to go to a country, it lists what the regulations are. If there's TBA against any, there probably aren't many regulations, if any. So there's some countries you'll go there, nothing for any drone regulations. So it's a free-for-all. Doesn't mean you can't fly there.
Yeah, but we, obviously with the work that we are doing, and we are doing inspections in some of the European these states. So, and we have got maybe like 7 to 10 pilots every day that are out there flying. So we have to have a piece of paper to just show that we are allowed to fly, because in Germany, even the police are not fully aware of the rules and regulations. I went to the Bundespolice in Hamburg one day, and I was doing an inspection in the Bundespolice place, right? Because they had a master, and I had about 6 or 7 of the police who actually came out, and they were, asking questions about drones, and because they didn't have a clue. They actually did not know, and of course, I'm always supportive. I always, share information with, it doesn't matter if it's a police or anyone. But I was really surprised that the police did not know anything. And that is, in a sense, quite worrying. So we always carry papers. We always carry everything, so that if we get stopped, if someone comes and asks us, we can show the papers. So it doesn't, stop us from working. It doesn't stop us from, you know, meeting our goals that day or whatever it is, because it is quite challenging.
Well, I mean, even with the sort of well-briefed police force in that sense, from what you say, you know, obviously crowded space drones publicly has a drone detection and counter drone element to us. And, you know, on the flip side of that, when police aren't educated, we have seen people produce pieces of paper which aren't legitimate, but look legitimate.
Yeah.
I've had people produce fake operational authorizations to the CA before, saying this is applies. So you have to sort of know what you're... what you're looking for in that sense. So if you're coming across those police officers, you're legitimate. So it's good that you get to train them in that sense about this is our permission, this allows us to do that. But it's that, you know, age-old question of, you know, do they know what they're looking for? But I think that the EASA content is starting to get there. I think it's starting to drip feed down to the NAAs, and I think it's only a matter of time before some of the other things that, I mean, I've told you some of the plans and things. I think some of that will help it massively.
It will, and but I think with the growth of businesses such as us, you know, you know, other companies as well that are doing cross border, and we're talking about cross border here. So this is not just I'm in a country and I want to fly. We have, we have our operator ID, which is based in Finland. We have an operator ID, which, you know, we are a Finnish company, and we want to do operations in Germany. We want to do operations in the Netherlands. We want to do operations in Poland, Austria. We need to sign a cross border, and that's something which I do regularly. I always get these forms through, which you know, and I need to sign that in order to say that we are flying there. But it's not always easy. It's not always the simplest thing, and I think that, you know, I would like to see EASA, you know, make things a little bit. It's not that they're making it easier. It's just that we have to have all the member states, actually aligned, and you know, they have to be looking at certain countries and saying, how do they work? Which way should we be working? Now, I'm biased right now by saying I would like to see all the member states working like Finland, because the way that the Finnish authorities work are just fantastic. They are very supportive. They try to they actually want to enable business, which is a good thing. You know, they're not your stereotypical civil servants. You know, they they really have aviation at their heart, and they really know that if they help us, it's helping them. You know, likes of Netherlands, really, really good. They're absolutely fantastic to work with. Other countries are really, really difficult, and you know, you seem to be spending your days sitting doing paperwork, which those days you should be flying. But unfortunately, this is how it is.
Well, I think that in terms of that, I think they probably need a good case study with the NAA to show the others. The ones who probably don't have any drone regulations, really, frankly, at all, probably think, well, we don't need to do anything because it's working well, because we don't know what the volume is, we don't know what's out there. But the ones that are like Germany, you know, and the Netherlands, France, Spain, the ones who have developed aviation structures, apologies, the ones who have those developed aviation structures, I think that they need to use good case studies and try and push the others into compliance and push down the road of, you know, we want to get specific category going fully. We want to get the the open category going, because without the specific category, especially developing into the extended visual line of sight and BVLOS, we're not going to see the drone deliveries as quickly and things like that, because those NAAs will be, you know, are behind the curve. The UK is getting very good. I mean, near here, Milton Keynes, there's a hospital now doing deliveries with drones. And we're really pushing down that route. And obviously a lot of those can come into the certified category. But you know, without that eco structure coming through in each NAA and then pushing it internally, we're not going to see that development. And I realize the bigger level development of the deliveries and things like that does trickle down typically in terms of help the open users, the specific category users, because that has to be very well structured to enable those other bigger things to happen. So all the stuff I think EASA are doing. Go ahead.
Yeah, but then at the same time, you have a lot of investment that has been put into these companies that are doing these drone deliveries and whatnot. It doesn't have to be drone deliveries. It can be, it can be any kind of service. But if they're doing the development and they need the investment, if things are not moving fast enough, the investment is not having a return of interest. And if you don't have a return of interest, then there will be no more investment into that sector. And this is where the risk is. So this is why I like working, for example, I have great respect for the Finnish authorities, because they do understand that if they push things through quicker, if they really get down and actually do it, those companies will have a return of interest, which will bring in more investment into the country, which will help them. They can get more staff, things can move, and then you have an industry. You actually have drone deliveries or whatever it is that you're actually doing. So one hand washes the other. And I don't mean that in a sort of negative way.
Because we've seen before, if you look at the drone registration in the UK, we had the FPV community, the model aircraft community, lobbying the Secretary of State for Transport, as they were then, heavily in terms of charges and things like that. And if you multiply that across the general drone regulations across Europe, it's easier to let the hobbyists have someone with, to an extent, unlimited funds, like your likes of Amazon, DHL, even people like Tesla or and SpaceX and things like that. Those companies that have drone programs, they come in and they've got lobbyists. They've got very well paid lobbyists who can really affect change a lot quicker than hobbyist group cans. So I think it's good to use them to push along the industry and the regulations to enable the smaller stuff, but to happen by default. It's not what they intend to bring in, when they're lobbying, but it comes by default by pushing the regulations on. So it enables more of the lower levels of airspace use for hobby use, lower commercial use in the specific category and things like that. So in general, I think it's good. But one burning question for you, Stephen, is what do you think about, obviously within Europe, there is a better recognition between multiple countries of their A2s and their GVC type qualifications for the open and specific. But what's your thoughts on the recognition of the UK certifications and vice versa?
Well, obviously they are very much the same, but but I mean, I think that they should be the same. You have your A2 CFC where we just have the A2. Yeah. It's primarily the same thing. If we have pilots from the UK that are working for us, and they have their A2 CFC, they still have to have the A2 from the EU.
Yeah.
So we will put them through that, because the A2 CFC is not enough for them to be flying here. Yeah. So it's again this all comes to the enabling again, is that yes, the A2 CFC is great for the UK, but outside the UK it is useless.
And I think that's there's a lot of UK pilots going to Europe and holiday things. They're getting that A2 online or the A3 and things, and it's I think there's still a lot of frustration there, because I think people thought that with the rest of manned aviation still sort of adopting a large degree of recognition between things, I thought that people still thought they would be able to recognise their qualifications to the UK. Or one of the actual things I've had this summer is a lot of foreign national pilots from Europe coming into the UK and expecting by default there will be a recognition of their qualifications. We had a very large sporting event which we were responsible for managing the airspace for, and we had a Dutch, from memory, pilot coming in who was trying to fly with Dutch qualifications in the UK, and we were like, no, that's not allowed, and they thought it was because they assumed that there was some sort of recognition within the EASA of vice versa with the CAA, and I think that people still think that's going to happen. But from speaking recently to the EASA on this point as well, there really isn't. Yes, the content is to an extent identical in most ways, but there is not going to be a recognition anytime soon, or probably at all, of qualifications. As you and I are working some stuff coming up, we're having to get I'm getting both sets where we already have Irish ones, which covers for
Yeah.
EASA. But
Of course.
you're going to have to get something else. And the good thing is, I mean, my attitude is, you know the content. If you're doing the A2 in the UK, if you're doing the A2 in Europe, you're going to know the content. If there's any localized airspace questions on it, yeah, you may have to look at that. But the Irish one, for example, almost a carbon copy.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
no,
it's,
you know,
and
you shouldn't be scared of it.
it's, you know, I'm going to have to do my part 107 next year because I don't have my part one. I know you have your part 107.
Well, yes,
I don't
I
have
do.
my part 107. You do indeed.
I've renewed it multiple times as well, just to sound even better.
And I actually just sent an email to Greg at the Pilot Institute, you know, because I'm thinking about going over there next year and getting my part 107, and so because again, I actually don't have the A2CFC yet. I should get the A2CFC. I need to actually come and get that. I don't have it. I didn't have time to do it last time I was there. But of course we have plans for that.
Yeah.
You know, we do have plans for that though. So
We'll tease that at the end of the show.
we'll tease that at the end. But yeah, it's and actually just on that subject about qualifications from the UK side and from the EU side, I was in a board meeting this week with the Joint European Drone Association, and we were talking about the changes to the SORA applications that are coming in actually from the EU side.
Yeah.
And actually they have a representative from the CAA there in that work group, and apparently in the future the CAA will be accepting future SORA applications instead of the European drone operators having to have the operator's authorization.
Well, that's the thing with using. I mean, the UK used the same standards as European aviation, so you're having to put documents in which are the same recognizable format to the CA and also to the Italians, the French, the Irish. So that doesn't surprise me whatsoever, and it's a good sign. But I think there's always going to be this Brexit sort of issue of the final stage acceptance. If you're going for something that's like an OSC type thing, as it used to be called, so if you're going for like anything specialist like a drone light show or an enhanced permissions and stuff, I can see easily how that's going to be accepted and just translate into local for the certification bit for the authorization. But I think there's always going to be that final stage of they just can't accept that OA from that other NAA. They'll have to issue their own, and that's the annoyance bit, because that's really where the money comes into it, rather than it's not a safety reason why they're having to do this. It's a technicality, bureaucracy issue.
I know.
Teaching to the choir.
Trust me, I know. We'll just end the conversation right there.
Yeah, we can talk about. Right, let's move on from EASA, because we could be here for hours. Right. The Mavic 3 Enterprise, what do you know and what do you think of it so far?
Again, I don't own one, so it's hard for me to have an opinion on its flying. Of course,
you've been quite critical of the Mavic 3 previously with all the GPS issues and things like that.
Yeah, and I do have a Mavic 3 now, so I do have one. I don't have it here in the office because it's actually currently with one of my pilots here in Finland, and he's going to be using it. So I don't have it actually here. I actually really like the Mavic 3. It's I mean, the camera on it is fantastic. It's just absolutely stunning. I love it. I love flying it. I love using the zoom. It's good. But I think that the Enterprise version, I think it was a no-brainer this was coming out.
Yeah.
My only criticism is that why do they have the SDK for this, but they don't have the SDK for the Mavic 3? That is just, it's just, really annoying. It's not a bigger thing for us because we don't really need the SDK at the moment. We are using another platform because we do things manually. But from a basic standpoint, it's just kind of annoying. But this is great. It's the thermal on it is fantastic. It's a real step up from the last Enterprise. dual that they had. Yeah, it's a really smart drone.
We've at Crowded Space Drones, we've been there since the original, Enterprise with the thermal, the upgraded one, and now this. So there's a gulf of difference between each of those models. It's really improving beyond what you could imagine each time. And really, with the one thing you and I were talking about earlier was the one video we need to actually test with this is the M30T versus this, because that's a really crucial difference nowadays. Because the M30T was brought out as a bit of a sort of upgrade from a Mavic, like a Mavic on steroids type thing, because it's easy to deploy, it's more compact, etc. But with the Mavic 3 Enterprise, I think it's interesting. I mean, the fact that you also, first of all, you got two versions, one for essentially survey and mapping with RTK, and the second, which is the thermal. The thermal one alone is way better than the previous thermal iterations. And the mapping one obviously has got mechanical shutter, so that's phenomenal from a sense of mapping and surveying and modelling, especially with the RTK for it in such a compact little form. So we're watching this video here in terms of the you have different. This is the official DJI video, and this is the different types of uses from it. We also have been out to do our own collection of data for this. So one of the things we were doing was a test with some of our staff. I mentioned they've got lots of space here, and in a minute after this video, we're going to show you that video of how the genuine test went, because search and rescue want these, and police want these for search, and a lot of it's about searching for things and testing things. So I'm looking for people who are missing, things like that. So we wanted to put together a really good test to see if it is good. We've also been involved in lots of missing person searches before. You wouldn't believe how many times at a music festival somebody in the local area has gone missing, and because you have the police with you, the police are, well, can you look for that? We had one in London last summer whereby a police officer got assaulted, and the person ran off, and we had to search undergrowth to find the person who'd run off into gardens because they'd seriously assaulted a police officer. And because we were there, and it would take too long to get the drone unit in from the Met Police, we were able to help with that search. So we're going to show this now. I want to get your opinion, Stephen, in terms of the quality of this, because I'm blown away by this drone. So we sent one of our team, Tony, who, Stephen, you've met, and we sent him off on a search and rescue mission. We just told him in somewhere in the large training fields we have here, there's somebody missing, and you need to find them. So let's take a look at this video. So we set this up like a normal search and rescue, so police drone flight in that sense. The drone's really compact. It's just the same size as the Mavic 3, and it's really easy to get going. The controls of it were really good. I mean, Tony was flying this, and it's really stable. You can see here, I'm flying the Inspire 2 above this, and it's moving about a bit, but the Mavic 3 is absolutely rock steady. And the one thing that really impressed us was the split screen. Obviously, we've seen that in the M300, the M30T, but the split screen with the thermal and the normal camera, which also can be the zoom camera. Yeah. So
we didn't have that in the dual, did we? In the first Enterprise dual, we didn't have that.
You're having to flip between the two.
Have that.
I mean, this is about 20 minutes in. I mean, there's just like a really long battery life. So this is about 20 minutes of searching fields and things. And then on the left, you can see there's a really clear heat signal. On the right, he's wearing a green coat. You wouldn't have seen that person lying there easily from that 200 feet distance. Yeah. And that's the height we were flying this at. Whereas the thermal, you could clearly see the legs, you could clearly see the torso, so it drew your attention to that, and he didn't know where the person was. So we then able to use the zoom camera, and you're able to go in and zoom in and verify what you've seen, because there's lots of times in searches we've done lots of searches whereby you're having to look for someone, and you don't know if it's it could be just a heat source. I mean. I'm a Celebrity, which was in Wales last year. I mean, I can tell you this now because back in Australia, we were flying thermal drones to look for people trying to get into the sets, and we were flying this at night time, and the amount of heat sources we found, which were not people, but you're having to investigate every one. But that meant sending security in, because there was no zoom camera built into the Mavic Enterprise thermal. So now you've got a zoom camera. It's so much easier to actually go in, look quickly while you're flying along, and identify if that's a person or not.
I mean, the camera on this one, it's, the zoom is just, it's just phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed with it. But I flew the 30T when I was visiting you last month, and I mean that was a very impressive drone to fly. As well. I mean, it's a different class, of course. It's a lot more expensive than this Enterprise, but this is a lot more entry. And I can see why. I can see a few companies, easily being able to justify its return of interest. Because I mean that's what it comes down to when you're buying a drone. It doesn't matter if it's going to be a sub 250 or a 30T. You are looking for return of interest because you have to justify buying that drone. It's not just a case of this is a cool drone, I think I'll buy it. Because when it comes to a 30T or when it comes to the Enterprise, the Mavic 3 Enterprise, you have to be able to justify. You have to be able to say, do I have the work for this? Will this actually enable us to have more work? So it's, and that's how you buy drones. Now, obviously for you, not so much for us because we're not using those drones or we don't have a need for them at the moment, although we may have a need for them, let's say next year. But right now, I mean, we don't have that ability or we don't have a need for it. Let's say we can easily go and buy it, but it's just going to sit on the shelf. And in fact, actually, our last DJI Enterprise Duo that we had, I actually gave it away. I actually sent it to Ukraine because we were not using it, and I thought it was better that it was getting used there, so we sent it to Ukraine.
Nice. Well, I think the good thing with this is they split the models because mapping function is very different from a thermal, and yes, you may do both, but then at least there's commonality between the batteries, controller, things like that. The mapping one, it looks sensational in terms of the quality of what you're able to do with it, the mechanical shutter, and the ability to create 3D models. Because when we're flying, a lot of the stuff we're flying, you've got the Phantom 4 before, which was good for, which could have had an RTK version for modeling, and a lot of really good people who are involved in the architecture and the modeling side, that's what they were using. That model line, really, the Phantom 4 has gone to the wayside now from DJI, so we're now into the Mavic series as really the main core enterprise unit. So to have a really good, enterprise drone from them, which replaces the Phantom 4, has the RTK module, but also has some extra bells and whistles you wouldn't expect. You've got a speaker attachment, you've got a floodlight attachment, and they're really simple. They're better than the original ones on the original Enterprise. I mean, the only thing I've used my Enterprise for of any late, the original one, was for Children in Need for BBC. We had to fly up to a window and surprise someone, and the speaker, that was quite good, but the new speaker's even better. So with this drone, you've got more sensors, you've got a better overall package, you've got better flight time, much longer flight time, and it's a really rock solid drone. We were really impressed flying this. Obviously this is the thermal one. There's a different camera on the mechanical one. It's very obvious which one's which. The other one looks a lot more like the normal Mavic 3. But we're just really impressed with all the flight characteristics of this. Everyone took to like a duck to water, and the people who we had to fly it had never flown a Mavic 3 before. On the zoom camera, because you'll know this, we don't have the footage here, but whenever one of the tests we do when we do drones, we hover above our office, as you did with the M30T, and then we zoom into, there's a hotel over a kilometre away on site at Silverstone, and the M30T could zoom in really well to that hotel, same as the M300 or H20T, but this actually was able to still zoom into the hotel. Yes, it was a bit blurred, it wasn't the best, but the zoom in this was that good, you're able to see a kilometre away easily. So when you're conducting a search or a survey, I mean, in a survey terms, that means you can go relatively close to high voltage lines and zoom in to get the pinhead detail you really need for some aspects of bolt heads and things like that when you're looking for rust. So the zoom camera in this is phenomenal from a survey, and you can put this in a backpack and hike across a field. Whereas even with the M30T, it's bulky enough to to hike with it.
Yeah, it is. No, it is a good drone. The Mavic 3 itself for so I can really only imagine that the Enterprise version, especially with the mechanical shutter,
Yeah.
because the Mavic 3 doesn't have the mechanical shutter. Does the Mavic 3 have the mechanical shutter?
No, it was new for the Enterprise.
It was new for the, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Phantom 4 has the mechanical shutter.
Yeah.
But the Mavic 2 Pro does not have the mechanical shutter.
The only one I would
As
like to
far
see
as
of
I
this,
remember,
so
no.
we have one of our clients is, for example, Arsenal Football Club, who use they want to look at the health of the pitches at the training facilities, and they've several of those, and then the stadium and things. So they use RGB drones for that, and they had an adapted Phantom 3 and a Phantom 4 and type stuff in terms of the multispectral drone. So I would suspect eventually we're going to see a multispectral version of this, because it would really good to complete that set if we had a multispectral version.
Yeah,
it'd be really good.
because I actually checked the DJI website a few weeks ago, and they still had the multispectral for sale. So they're still, I think they're still selling it. So
But I think everything will move over to this ecosystem, because it's a better ecosystem for end users. It's more consistent for DJI. Obviously, they're looking to standardize things as much as possible nowadays. So. Yeah. I hope to see that, because I think a lot of people will move away. That'll probably kill off the Phantom 4, but the Phantom whole series has had its day. The Mavic is a more nimble series now, and then builds up to the M30T, the M300. So it's a much better ecosystem now, I think.
It is. I still got my Phantom 4. I still have it.
I've still got a Phantom 3 Pro, the first one I ever flew.
Oh, yeah.
I don't fly it. I mean, we train new pilots on it because I don't mind if it gets broken. But
yeah, exactly.
Phantom, if you ever want a tip about learning to fly, buy an old Phantom 3, because if you can land in a crosswind on those skids, you're a really good pilot.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, so in summary, I think it's a really good drone. It's really, I can't think of what a Phantom or Phantom. I can't think of what a Mavic 4 would have, because there's that much in this. I can't think of anything else that's left off. So
I'm sure it's sitting in the. I'm sure it's sitting in the blueprints right now. Yeah.
But I just don't know what they'll go from here, apart from adding different versions of things on, because it's really rock solid. It's really welcomed our fleet. But yeah.
Sub 250 with a 1-inch sensor. I think that's the next. That is the next level that they have to be going for now. And once they reach the 1-inch sensor on a sub 250, then they will, I think, whatever they do with the Air 3 or whatever it is, or but now we've got all this out of the way. Now we have got the Mavic 3 out, we've got the Enterprise out, all that stuff. If they can get the docking station to work properly, I know they've been having issues with that. There've been a few failures in Las Vegas and stuff. But definitely, I think 1-inch sensor on a sub 250 that would be groundbreaking, because it would allow you to do, let's say urban operations and still get very, very good quality.
Yeah. I mean, my money for DJI coming up really is on the automation side as well, because obviously you talk about the dock there, they're now going into the area where they want the drones to patrol from a security perspective or things like that. There's going to be, I think, additional bits in terms of that on the automation side and the BVLOS side, because if DJI don't recognise EVLOS and BVLOS as a future market, I'd be very surprised, because it's going to be a lot bigger for not just governments but also private sector as well. In that sense, and if you're a farmer, you may have look at Jeremy Clarkson, the UK. He flew a Mavic 2 with a speaker to chase a sheep. If he wants automation to do that round a farm, DJI will have a product in the future to do that, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's. We're seeing now that the crop spraying is now coming into the EU. So this is now something which is slowly, I think it will become, but let's not forget that what DJI have in terms of this docking station there's been many Chinese companies out there that have had these docking stations for years.
Yeah.
And they, so what DJI have is nothing new.
No,
it's just DJI.
I've spoken to various British companies. There's a British company near us at Cranfield things that have their own version, which is designed for the Mavic series for docking stations. So there's definitely not anything new, but it's one of those things of DJI are essentially the first to market with something that works perfectly with their drones, and that's always going to beat someone who's having to come in from an SDK point of view in that sense. There'd be a high level.
But it's having the regulations that allow for that. To take off from wherever and fly and do whatever and then come back.
Even if DJI bring out software that allows you to EVLOS or BVLOS fly around the site and things like that, people still need to realize you'll still need a CA permission to do that. It just because DJI say here's the software that does it automatically doesn't mean you can just go and do it. So there's that hurdle to come over as well, because you want people who are competent to oversee those operations. You don't just want anyone off the street picking that up, really.
No. But yeah, I do think that we are. They have the technology. It is there. Mm-hmm. We just don't have the ability to make it happen. But again, when you have countries such as Finland, maybe even the UK, which would allow that to happen more and give other countries a bit of a boost. Again, this is where you look at this is going back to the EASA rules again, is that things can happen here, but things may not easily happen in one other country, but it should be able to happen easier in the other country. So that's where things are not really aligned in such a way. Yeah. Because I know that if we had docking stations, we could do these kind of operations here in Finland. I know that I would have support. It would take a lot of work and probably have a lot of documentation, a lot of work with the authorities, but they would I would say that they would probably allow us to do that. Yeah. But in other countries, maybe not. I don't think so.
Well, if DJI happen to be listening to our first ever program, Stephen is willing to work with you. If you send him the docking station and I assume you wanted M30T to go with it.
Absolutely.
Stephen will get you into Finland.
Easy. Because we actually were looking at a docking station. We're looking at a project last year, but the company in China, they were not financially doing very well, so I didn't trust them, and I didn't want because I didn't want to be left with this and then have to be stuck with it in a sense. I wanted to make sure that I had support and all the rest of it and whatnot. So it's a big responsibility.
I have the same issue with tethers. That's probably a subject for another show, because I'd love to use tethers, but I want to make sure they're safe first, and that's my concern with tethers.
Exactly.
But I really appreciate you being here for the first show. It's really good. It's always good to have. We always have good fun together. Hopefully everyone else enjoys our banter as well. We do have some good shows coming up, and some of the stuff we've got planned for the future. We can sort of give hints out now in terms of we're doing one big project together, which will, I think it'll be to an extent groundbreaking. I mean, it's never been done before. It will be a special show, and it will really help people, I think, in terms of their flying across Europe. I think that's as much as we can really say about that.
Yeah.
But we're working together. We're going away together in the new year to film something, which I think will be fantastic. There's a lot of planning going into it. It's working with a lot of stakeholders to make it really good. So there's a big project coming, but also there's lots of little ones. I mean, Stephen's agreed to come live to our studio and drink certain beverages with us in January. So we've got a drunk stream coming up. Oh, we're gonna have.
You said drunk stream, yeah.
Yeah, I did.
You said drunk stream. You did. I did. I didn't hear something else there.
What's the thing you gifted me? We haven't touched it yet. We'll have to touch it with you.
Salmiakki.
It looks, lovely. But It's the fact you
have
had
to
to
have
give
it
us
cold.
sweets to go with it. That's never a good sign for a drink or a beverage.
It's
But we've got lots of stuff coming up. We're delighted to have Stephen helping us because this channel is none of what we're doing here is about look at us, we're the best at doing things. We're trying to broaden people's horizons. We want to bring you stuff behind the scenes from what we do at Crowded Space Drones. We're very grateful that Stephen's agreed to give you behind the scenes to an extent from explaining what he does with drone shows and other things like that. And we've got lots of other content planned that will bring you really into the heart of how to be a better drone pilot, and also give you how to broaden your horizons, give you some advice if you're new starting out, and a lot of different things that really complement our training courses, our A2 CFC and our GVC for the UK. But yeah, thank you very much, Stephen, and I look forward to next time you're on the show.
Yeah, I don't know when that will be. Can we do one remotely?
Yeah, but my show schedule is going to be a bit. I mean, Stephen's going off to foreign countries. I'm going off to the sand pit for a few weeks to work. I'm going to America next week and things. So yeah,
right.
so
you're off to the sand pit. Are you at the sand pit at the same time as me?
I'm in the sand pit middle of November to middle of December.
That's the same time as me, but we're in a different sand pit.
We're like I think side by side sand pits. We're in the same area of sand pits. It's really hard to explain to people what we're doing, but yeah. But no, I mean, it's interesting. One final thing on the Avata, my American thing I'm doing for a big corporation. I'm going to do some safety critical stuff with them, and it's nothing to do with drones. It's for my other job dealing with major events and crowds and things like that. And actually, the guy knows we do drones, and the only thing he wanted to talk about is how much he loves his Avata. It's the first drone he's ever bought, and this is a very senior executive type from this global corporation, and all he wanted to talk about was his Avata and how much he loves it.
But isn't that great though?
It brings us together. I didn't have anything to bond with him over until he knew I had an Avata because it was in the background of a Zoom, and he then saw it and started talking about the Avata.
It's his first drone. He has the bug, and that's what he And
he flies with his kids in Texas. That's what he does.
Yeah. Absolutely, totally. Go out and fly.
You don't need to be in this for commercial reasons. Completely,
he's
there for the pure love of just flying it around the field.
Yeah,
but
that's how we all started anyway. But unfortunately, we fell into other ways, and now we're stuck doing what we do. So.
I mean, not stuck. You're making millions flying around the world doing drone light shows. You're hardly stuck.
You sound like my family. They seem to think I'm some kind of millionaire or something as well, and it's like I'm I don't know.
But yeah,
but like you.
I'm not the one doing shows for Spotify. But yeah, thank you very much, Stephen, and apologies for keeping you up so late.
No, not a problem at all. I'm just going to go home to my bed. My home's not too far away, so it's okay.
All right, brilliant. Thank you. Well, and thank you for everyone who's been watching. I know this is our first stream. We're a bit late, a few technical glitches to get us started. That's why I'm wearing these terrible headphones. But I really appreciate you coming along and watching the show and engaging with us. And I really hope that you're going to enjoy the content we got coming up. So stay tuned. Please hit the subscribe button. We will be bringing some brilliant content to you very shortly. And I hope to see you in a future stream. Good night.